Hello everyone. As you already know, you can find the timeline of each chapter in the description. Without further ado, let's start the video. 10 years ago, doors opened in the human world. Monsters came out of them, and as a response to that invasion, the awakened began to appear. These awakened individuals became hunters who pursued the monsters. But what does it matter? Revealing a young man who is hit by a stone. He is Kang and he considers himself a loser. Moreover, the three boys in front of him are his perpetrators, asking him to start arriving. The young man explains that he's at a high school, specializing in awakened, and all he has is the ability to regenerate. It's supposed to be an S-rank ability, but not for him, since the price of regenerating is hellish pain. He adds that after that, his bullies attack him, laugh at him, and even more when he heals. Because of that, he can't even prove he's being bullied, and the police and teachers can't do anything for him, since his perpetrators are S-rank awakened, who receive special treatment from the government. Then, Ji-hyung explains that the only reason he puts up with all this is for his mother, who, by the way, asks if he has already eaten and how things are. He replies that everything's great, while thinking that his father left when he was 5 years old. He also confirms that he'll be able to become a hunter when he graduates. For that reason, he has to endure it, as with his ability, he'll at least be a C-rank hunter. He concludes that his income will be small, but at least they'll be able to live in a better place, him and his mom. Or at least, that's since those bastards, his perpetrators, beat her until she was left in a vegetative state. They say it was an accident, since they happened to go to his mom's restaurant, and while she was serving the paid food, one of them admired her figure to grab her by the wrist and asked what she thought of him, as he had the ability to make diamonds. But she broke free, accidentally hitting the boy's phone, which fell to the floor. That act annoyed the boy, who then attacked her. The coward claimed that his abilities accidentally activated. That angers Ji-hyung, as he knows them and knows it wasn't a coincidence, that it wasn't an accident, hurting himself with the rage he had toward those who hurt his precious mother. So somewhere, the three boys were near a portal. One of them asks if the lady will be okay, wondering what will happen if she dies. Just as Tae-soo comes out of the portal, saying that no one cares, explaining that they're young enough to be protected by law, and besides, they are awakened. But just as his companion was about to say something, he asks if he thinks it was his first time hitting someone. It's then that Ji-hyung appears and asks why he did it, starting to walk towards them, while the young man asks why he did it, shouting because he hurt his mother. Upon hearing that, Tae-soo smirks, since he didn't know she was his mother, cursing the woman in front of her son, who was crying out of rage. But before he could do anything, a diamond spear was embedded in his chest by the bully, who, by the way, comments that he almost flirted with her, laughing about it. That angers Ji-hyung even more, who grabs the diamond and starts pulling it from his chest, managing to pull out the spear, and immediately he curses them, but Tae-soo already had another attack prepared. And with the movement, a rain of diamond spears pierces the young man. After that, his perpetrator asks who he thinks he is, calling him a loser. But those words cause Ji-hyung to awaken, and he starts walking towards them, cursing them as he approaches, gravely injured. Tae-soo says he's tough, and asks his companion to show the powers of Taeyos. Something the boy immediately obeys, causing a lightning bolt to strike the young man, electrocuting him, causing him to fall to his knees, then pass out. Seeing the young man's condition, the perpetrators decide, but Ji-hyung wakes up, grabs one of their legs, and asks where he thinks he's going. That act makes Tae-soo angry. Wrapping his hand in diamond, he punches the injured young man. Those punches are repeated over and over again as he curses him, since he can't even protect his mother, ending with his fist in the opposing young man's mouth. For a moment, he doesn't react, but in a burst of anger, he bites the diamond while revealing a threatening look, scaring Tae-soo. Then, his electric friend calls him. He asks what he wants, and if they're scared. But the young man says it's not that, and that something's wrong with. One of them comments that it's a blood door, while the electric guy says they have to report it. But Tae-soo has a macabre idea, pointing at Ji-hyung. and using his ability to create a diamond stone that throws him into the portal. But before entering the portal, the young man threatens them, saying that he's going to eliminate. That's when Taesu tells him to try if he can get out. After that, Ji-hyung falls to the ground inside the portal. When he opens his eyes, he remembers the phenomenon where a door turns red and monsters stop coming. The professor adds that not much has been revealed about it, and the reason is that no one has entered a blood door and come out alive, revealing to us the sea of monsters, heading straight towards Ji-hyung, who was defenseless on the ground. They reach him, then begin to eat, tearing his skin with each bite, breaking his bones with each monster that feeds him, reducing it into a pile of broken bones. However, new research has shown that those who enter a blood door turn into monsters. At that moment, Ji-hyung begins to regenerate, but starts taking on a new form due to the mana inside the door that starts to transform him. And as he was close to completing the transformation, he remembers his mother, but not just her. He also remembers his perpetrators and what they did to her. Entering a state of madness, suffering from unbearable pain, until at one point he punches the ground. The impact of the punch catches the attention of nearby monsters, who then look at him. Immediately, they activate and run towards him to eat him again. However, Ji-hyung is no longer the same, managing to kill some monsters before walking towards another. After some time, on a giant screen, an interview is shown with the famous S-rank hunters. The three of them are famous for their kindness, and they often do volunteer work. One of them comments that they always felt joy when helping those in need, and that they still feel that way, being the three perpetrators of Ji-hyung. After hearing that response, the presenter talks about a civilian that Taesu injured about 5 years ago due to an accident with an ability. But before continuing, the young man starts crying and comments that she couldn't control his abilities well. Confesses that he wants to apologize to his friend, but he has never been able to communicate with him, and when he said he was sorry, the interview room door flies towards him. With his ability, he manages to defend himself, so he looks to see what is happening. That's when many civilians scream that he is a monster, starting to flee. Meanwhile, the so-called monster walks toward the three boys to launch an attack. But before that fight began, Ji-hyung was in another one some time ago, as he encountered a red portal and started running towards it, eliminating every monster in his path. Returning to the present, Taesu is hit hard in the face, flying far from the attack. This surprises his friends, who can only stare at the monster in front of them. By the way, it tells them that it managed to escape. After saying that, Taesu stands up and asks his friends to eliminate the monster. That's when Pikachu uses his power, delivering an electric attack that at first seems to work, but it clearly enrages Ji-hyung, who with a single move beheads him. His friends witness this and are momentarily speechless. After the head falls, the supposed monster looks at them, and just at that moment, the boy who controls rocks traps him in a stone structure. But obviously, that wouldn't be enough, as Ji-hyung manages to break the structure and grab the young man by the jaw, tearing it off his face with a yank. This makes the young man fall in pain, only to receive the final blow. It is at this moment that Taesu lands a punch on the monster, but that attack was useless, as it only fell moments. Because of this, he prepares multiple diamond spears outside the building and, with a flick of his finger, launches them all at the monster. But after a few seconds of being still, the monster begins to move, and to Taesu's horror, the wounded creature starts pulling out the diamond spears. Faced with this opponent, the young man coats his body in diamond, starting to attack with punches, one after another, ending with his fist in the monster's mouth. But unlike before, this time, the monster manages to break and bite him, then immediately impales him. Both exchange looks of fury and fear. And at that moment, Taesu summons a diamond stone impaling the monster who was staring at him. The young man takes advantage of the immobilization to flee, but he doesn't get far as a diamond spear pierces him. It was thrown by Ji-hyung, who, by the way, begins walking toward his assailant while holding multiple diamond spears. The young man screams for him to stay away, but it's useless as the monster punishes him by embedding all of the diamond spears into him. After that, Tae-soo asks who he is and why he's doing this. Upon hearing this, Ji-hyung grabs half of his face, pulling out the bone that was there, revealing his perpetrator, only to immediately receive his punishment for so many years of suffering, being hit over and over again until Ji-hyung places his fist in the boy's mouth and he dies. After that, he looks around, revealing that the entire place was destroyed. While gazing at his reflection, he remembers when he came out of the red portal, going to visit his mother. Enraged by the state she ended up in after 5 years, he screams in the rain, trying to drown the. Meanwhile, in another location, more precisely at a portal in the middle of the forest, a group of hunters praises a healer for her good work and asks if it's her first time in a gate. She confirms it and thanks them for watching over her, but then they take a perverse attitude and say that they are the ones who should be grateful. They explain that no one knows what happens inside a gate, beginning to approach the woman, grabbing her and saying they'll take a month to leave, asking her to make the most of that time with them. But before anything happens, the man's head falls off, terrifying everyone. They turn around to see who was there, revealing it to be Ji-hyung. But of course, they don't know that, and assume he's another monster, attacking immediately. However, the attack is useless, as it does nothing to the bone monster. Even when someone strikes him with a sword, it shatters in the process, resulting in the loss of the wielder's head. This terrifies the hunters, who believe this monster is too strong. In just a few seconds, they all lose their heads. This is witnessed by the woman, who trembles in fear as the monster approaches her. He examines her closely, something she also does, stopping her tears and thanking him for saving her. Or at least, that's what it seemed, as Ji-hyung cuts her in half. Then we return to the moment when he was screaming to relieve the accumulated pain. At that very moment, someone speaks, saying it was incredible, and asks how he feels after completing his revenge. Ji-hyung asks who she is. The woman introduces herself as the head of the Korean Hunter Association, Lee Yoo-min. He then asks how she knows him, to which the woman replies that she oversees everyone who enters through a red bottle and asks if it was 5. Upon hearing those words, Ji-hyung launches an attack while cursing her. However, he stops abruptly when she mentions that she can revive his mother. Diverting his attack and shocked, he asks what she just said. Yoo-min responds that she can awaken her as she is the only S-class healer in the world. Upon hearing this, he asks what he needs, so she explains that the gates are interconnected, turning them into a passageway that ignores borders. And there are countries that use this fact to wage war on hunters. Peace has been broken and all nations are enemies. However, they lack hunters, so they've been unable to block the invasion of Japanese hunters. Until he returned. She comments that if they respond to Japanese pressure with hunters, it will draw a lot of global attention, so they need his help. She declares that she will bring his mother back, but in exchange, he must become a monster for them. Already elsewhere, more precisely in Japan, in the Prime Minister's office, he speaks with the Defense Minister and asks why all his hunters are untraceable. The one asking is the Japanese Prime Minister, Ryuzaki Ryudo. The Defense Minister apologizes and confesses that it is his fault, saying he will go look for them. He is Ikusai Kageru, Japan's #1 hunter. As he leaves the room, he asks for his sword to be prepared immediately, and his secretary asks if he is going alone, to which then she says she might be rude, but informs him that many elite hunters were sent before, and no one returned, suggesting he go with some support hunters. However, Kageru asks if he needs something like that, to which she apologizes. So, as he is already at the portal, he thinks that hunters are useless and questions if they could have been wiped out by such monsters. Just when some monstrous dogs attack him, but they end up being eliminated. Then the hunter sees something. He encounters Ji-hyung, who is sitting on top of a pile of bodies, and that seems to activate the hunter's instincts, moving quickly and attacking Huesos, but he defends himself, surprising the swordsman with the monster's defense. Then he attacks the hunter, who asks if he dares to block his sword while dodging an attack and preparing a skill, the first moon. That strike makes the monster fly, but he is also injured. So the man uses another skill, the second moon, cutting Ji-hyung, and at that moment, Kaguru prepares the final attack, the third moon. But before his attack reached the monster, it counterattacked, getting close to his face. However, he manages to move his sword, cutting off his arm, and finally cuts off his head while stating that his sword can even cut through diamond. After that, he questions if the hunters lost to something like that and says they are pathetic. Ji-hyung, without his head, remembers his father. He was always busy with work, but he was warm and kind, and that was the quality he liked the most. Although, due to his own carelessness, he caused an accident, ending his father's life, considering it was all his fault. After that, his mother's business went down, and they had many debts. He doesn't remember the last time he held his mother's hands, which makes him wonder if she is okay. He didn't sleep at night because he heard his mother crying. He concludes that everything is his fault and that someone like him does not have the right to live. However, when his mother finds him, he informs her that he is a wasn't, as the wound he had before regenerated. Hugging her, he says that he will become a hunter and make her happy. After that, he recalls when Yumin said that the age of peace has ended, with Japan being the greatest enemy. She asks Ji-hyung to become her monster to hunt Japan's strongest. After that flashback, Ji-hyung wakes up and starts regenerating, something Kagero does not notice, as he only mentions that he is going to Korea. Right then, his leg is bitten, surprising him even more when he sees that the monster is regenerating, confirming to himself that he had cut off the head, angering Ji-hyung. He bites harder. That provokes the swordsman to cut off the head again and start activating his skill, only to disappear immediately. Since he was moving at high speed and using the sill, 12th moon, completely slicing the monster. That attack was so strong that the wave of cuts expanded throughout the portal tunnel, reaching its exterior, cutting everything in front. After that attack, Kagero sheaths his sword and says he didn't expect to be bitten in the leg, wanting someone to heal him. But before that happens, a bone pierces his leg, frightening him since the monster is still alive and moving. This makes him angry, drawing his sword and cursing while launching an attack. In a scene change, a woman asks if all these people are really necessary, as not only the Prime Minister, but also multiple elite hunters are present. The young man comments that it has already been 3 days since Kagero entered, and he needs to check what happened to him. But before he says anything else, the swordsman's head comes out of the portal. But once the monster that was there also comes out, it's then that the Prime Minister orders an attack. But before his voice can give the order, he is cut down. Back at the Korean Hunter Association, someone asks if they really believe he can do it. Yumin replies that they will have to see if he can win against Japan's strongest hunter, revealing to us that Ryuzaki Juto was not cut down and managed to counterattack, causing a great explosion where he struck. Moreover, he is the strongest hunter in Japan, with an SSF. 3 years ago, most of the monsters from normal portals were subjugated. After that, the world began to fear the power of hunters, so some countries tried to eradicate the hunters, but they failed miserably. Because of that, hunters all over the world who saw this either reached an agreement with their nation, coexisted, or they conquered the country by force, each obtaining supremacy in their own way. It is revealed that one of the countries hit by the hunters was Japan. The reason was simple. The Prime Minister wasn't his rank hunter. He was aggressive even before awakening, and after the hunter system appeared, he tried to take control of South Korea. However, that ambition was being hindered because of a monster. The elite awakeners, seeing the monster regenerating, are surprised, and they ask to leave that being with them, and two of them reach to attack. But before they attack, Ji-young grabs the head of one while cutting off the others. Moreover, the one whose head was grabbed was crushed immediately. The other hunters saw this, leaving them impressed, and at the same time angry, since their companions were eliminated. But before they could do anything, the Prime Minister shouts that from now on, he will eliminate anyone who takes a step. This leaves everyone scared. Meanwhile, Ji-young and the Prime Minister exchange glances. It is at that moment that in a memory, a place with snow is revealed, and a man asks a boy what he is doing there. That man was Ryuzaki Judo, and the boy, seeing him, questions who he is. The man doesn't answer that, but says it's cold. Wrapping the boy, he asks him to accompany him. On the way, he asks the boy's name, and looking at him, the boy responds that it is the swordsman who lost his head. That enrages Judo, who, in a few seconds, begins to attack the bone monster. He attacks with fiery fists, managing to make a hole in the monster's chest, causing it to fall in pain. After that, the man gathers fire energy in his mouth, releasing it on the monster, completely melting it. This was witnessed by the other hunters, who were astonished, as it was something they expected from the Prime Minister, who, by the way, was watching the melted bones. It is then that he goes to grab his friend's head, but then he notices something, and it's the bone monster, which was rising from the fire, regenerating every part that had melted before. Ryuzaki Judo, seeing this, has another memory of when they eliminated all the resistance, and he apologizes for having forced his protege to do these things, to which he responds that it's okay. The man, with a determined look, says that they have just conquered Japan, and now they will take South Korea and China. He warns the boy that they could die the next time they fight a group, and if he wants, he can stop following him. However, the young man says that it was him who took him in when he was about to sleep forever on the street, and for that, he will be in his debt for the rest of his life. But he wishes to ask something, and that is when all this is over, to be given permission to call him father. The man replies that he is close-minded and adds that even without asking, he already is his son. Returning to the present, the battlefield has changed, and right at that moment, a girl with ice abilities freezes the lava that was around. Then she looks at the fight between the two monsters. Bones takes a few steps back, and that's when a volcano explodes. So Yuto reveals a complete transformation of his body, which was wrapped in magma and fire, and immediately hurls magma at the monster, starting to melt. Just at the moment, he jumps to attack the man, but before reaching him, he is thrown far away by a pillar of fire used by Yuto, sending him to the mouth of the volcano, which also explodes, toasting him even more. Everyone was looking at the volcano, revealing that it was so large it could be seen from far away. After that, Juto looks at his adversary, who was sinking his bones into the lava. It is at that moment that he calls Hanami, and she appears before him. The man asks for her hand, then she removes the glove, beginning to freeze where she touched, extending the freezing to the volcano, cooling the lava. Before leaving, Juto says that he will melt there forever, showing us that Ji-young's hand was trapped, leaving his body heated in magma. Changing location, in South Korea, at the Keum Kang Guild, something seems to be happening, and a woman was healing someone, revealing to us that the Diamond Youth is being healed. Opening his eyes at the volcano, Juto mentions that only a minimal number of people will stay behind, and the rest will return, which everyone confirms. Meanwhile, on Ji-young's side, he reflects on how horrible it is, moving his hand and hitting the ice. He knows that the lava is like the one inside, recalling that in a lava pit, surrounded by monsters, a skeletal hand emerges, and it's Ji-young, revealing that this is something he has experienced tens of thousands of times. Now, in the present, under the lava, he forces himself forward, breaking his bone and freeing himself. He reflects that even after experiencing it multiple times, the pain never lessens. He screams under the lava, Then he places his leg on the hardened lava and pushes away, gaining enough momentum to crash into the crystal and free himself. The girl catches Yuto's attention, and he asks her to gather the hunters and hide. Immediately, he jumps towards the hardened crust. The girl can do only watch. Recalling when she asked if he wasn't exaggerating, saying that magma regeneration isn't omnipotent, he then responds that among the 4 great hunter nations, United States, China, Russia, and Japan, they are the weakest, and if they can't absorb South Korea, there won't be another way for them to survive. Then Hanami approaches and says that many of her hunters will also die, but he argues that he can fight more, even if his body is destroyed. He will protect his country, transforming and sending Bones far away. Then he immediately jumps towards him, hitting him and embedding him in the wall. Right after, he grabs him and throws him far, but Bones manages to. However, Yuto prepares a fire attack, shooting it at the monster, which tried to protect itself. Unfortunately, its bones melt. To finish the combo, the man jumps, falling like a meteor onto Ji-young, triggering the volcano. Hanami tells the other hunters that the Prime Minister ordered them to evacuate and that she will stay behind, ordering everyone, but someone apologizes and says that everyone has received help from the Prime Minister. In the end, everyone declares they will protect Ryuzaki Ju, who by the way was dragging the monster deep into the volcano, tearing it apart until there was nothing left. Juto remains motionless for a few seconds, while the other hunters wait. However, Ji-young begins to regenerate over the man, heading toward the surface. He saw it, but it was too late, as the monster managed to fully emerge, enraging him. But before he noticed, the monster heads towards Hanami, grabbing her by the arm and dragging her into the volcano, freezing the monster in the process. However, as mentioned before, the Prime Minister didn't see it coming. At that moment, he emerges with an ability already prepared, while the other hunters chase the monster in an attempt to rescue Hanami. Everything seemed to end there, but Yuto bit his lip to hold back the attack, and with his arm, he manages to cut the monster and free his wife. Unfortunately, the monster takes advantage of the distraction, and all the hunters prepared their attacks, and Hanami managed to touch the skeletal hand, freezing it completely and receiving the attack. It shattered it entirely. In a rush to see if she is okay, they throw the frozen remains into the lava, but the woman is unable to speak as she sees her beloved's lifeless body approaching. She notices that the head was frozen. This leaves everyone upset, but with no time to process such a feeling, as they hear something, and it's the monster regenerating and starting to walk toward them. The woman is in tears, and Ji-young is in front of her, fainting from everything that's happening. Then she begins to dream. He says it's okay and that he's there, kissing her. But in that beautiful moment, the woman opens her eyes, seeing her beloved's head frozen, and waking up to reality, seeing that all the hunters she had were eliminated. She can only look at him, then divert her gaze to her hands, and with the touch of her palm, she freezes herself, ending her life in front of. After all that, Bones returns to the portal. The scene changes to South Korea, more precisely, to the Keum Kang Guild, in a mana stone storage room, where a woman tells Tai-Su that he can't overexert himself, that he was the only one left with mana, and that's why they managed to save him, but his friends weren't as lucky. The girl asks for the reason, and he replies that the boy he used to play with in his youth escaped from the Blood Gate and eliminated him. While recalling his face, he curses him, calling him a bastard. At that moment, he removes his outfit, revealing himself as the guild master and his S-rank hunter, Han Tae-so, whose sword is Manhwa. Immediately after, he orders that the seal be. After a long process, the girl manages to break the seal. After that, the young man asks to gather all the members of the Keum Kang Guild. One of the members bows, saying he is at his service, while some question whether the master had not died. But it is then explained that the vice master of the guild revived him. The Vice Master informs that the monster has moved to the gate after the massacre in Japan. Additionally, he talks about the meaning of eliminate everyone. It is obvious since he wants to eliminate the monster. Upon hearing that, the Vice Master states that his intelligence team has sworn under penalty of death that they will be of great help. But soon after saying that, he loses his head. That scene is witnessed by his team as Tae-soo absorbs his power. One of the boys calls for his master, and he responds that the guy he has now was originally the vice president of the Korean Hunters Association. Since he absorbed the association 3 years ago, the Keum Kang Guild has been able to dominate Korea. He adds that this guy's ability is S-rank telekinesis. Activating that ability, he eliminates the person who called him, exploding and causing a red rain. Before all of that happens, the woman by his side asks if he really wants to remove the seal, explaining that his ability is cursed. But in the present, Tae-soo thinks that's not the case, that his ability is the best. He then asks the others if they want to be of help. That causes the Keum Kang Guild to be completely annihilated that day. It is revealed that Tae-soo was the cause of all of this since he was absorbing the abilities of the members. The woman who removed the valet asks if he is okay, to which he responds no, and that the monster eliminated the S-rank Prime Minister, considering that it's still not enough power. He thinks about eliminating the worm at all costs, but then refines that idea, calling it by its name, Kang Ji-hyung. At the same time, he declares, in another location, Lee Yumin stands before a portal from which Husos emerges. She welcomes him. At the Korean Hunters Association building, Yumin reflects that the healing process has begun immediately, explaining that her S-rank healing restores damaged cells one by one using her mana. Ji-hyung knows it will take time, but she can definitely save her. He carefully observes the treatment of his mother. After some time, Yumin leaves and mentions that if she does this every day, his mother will wake up next week. Collapsing immediately due to forcing her ability, Ji-hyung, seeing her, comments that it seems to cost an extraordinary amount of mana. He asks why she goes so far to do this. She grabs his hand and responds that she does it because he has to survive. Activating his ability, that scares Husos, who immediately pulls his hand away. Yumin says it was as she expected, that his beastification process has progressed inside the Blood Gate. She explains that since the gate first appeared 15 years ago, all the other gates have slowly turned them into blood gates. However, since Ji-hyung escaped from one, the change has accelerated, and as a result, all the gates in the world are becoming blood gates. She adds that the mana flowing from them is giving him strength. She further explains, in terms of mana flow, that if a normal gate is a hole, a blood gate is a passage. This means it's connected to somewhere, and something is passing through it, and that something is searching for him. Revealing that multiple monsters will start emerging from the red gates. This will cause a wave of destruction in the cities where they appear, making civilians flee and wonder what these things are. In a scene change in the office of the President of South Korea, which is protected by a barrier, someone shouts, questioning what is happening. They ask why the Keum Kang Guild isn't responding. That's when another man repeats that it's because the guild has been annihilated, leaving the questioner speechless. Faced with this situation, the man who seems to be the secretary asks what they should do and suggests it might be wise to seek help from abroad. However, the man who appears to be the president rejects that option, arguing it would be equivalent to self-destruction. He quickly adds that they will first declare martial law, something his secretary seems to doubt, as the army won't be effective against the matters. This angers the president since there is no other option and they must do something. He adds that the Keum Kang Guild isn't all they have, as Korea's second-ranked guild, Dosa, Korea's third-ranked guild, Vino, the fourth-ranked, the Yonghak Guild. However, all those guilds were defeated by a beast that emerged from a red portal. Ji-hyung witnessed it all, wondering if it was all his fault. Lee Yumin doesn't confirm, but questions what he will do now. At that moment, a girl falls in the middle of the street. nearly crushed. But luckily, Husos appears and cuts the monster in half. Reflecting that when he died inside the Red Gate, Amana tried to turn him into a monster, but he managed to endure, which is why he obtained an abnormal regeneration ability. Or at least, that's what he thought, but it turns out that wasn't the case. He knows that the mana won't let him go until it turns him into a complete monster. However, he reflects that he's finally trying to live a peaceful life after his mother is treated. However, in the present, he's fighting and shouts why they can't leave him alone as he eliminates a monster. Nevertheless, he was being watched, and someone asks if it's him, that someone is a bone monster sitting in a creepy chair, who, by the way, questions whether it was him who caused the crack. Ji-hyung says he will eliminate all the monsters and asks her to keep healing his mother in a safe place. Yumin understands his plan and says she will continue healing her from the association's underground bunker. Meanwhile, she mentally urges him to fight hard for. Ji-hyung reflects that these monsters are familiar, noticing that they are the friends he fought continuously for 5 years inside the Blood Gate. He knows that after a certain amount, the monsters stop coming out. Moreover, he eliminated all those around, and if he deals with all of them, he can live happily with. But suddenly, he receives a bullet in the head. When he turns around, he notices it's the army. One of the soldiers says he only eliminated monsters, but another responds that it doesn't matter, saying he is the cause of this situation and they will contain him until hunter support arrives. This surprises Ji-hyung a bit. However, he had no time to think as a tank fires, and not just one, but several. This impacts Ji-hyung hard. Mentally, he screams in pain, and in that moment of agony, he begins to lose his vision. When he regains it, he is in front of a red door, which incidentally began reacting to his presence. He remembers when Yumin told him to be careful, as near a blood gate, it would be hard to suppress monstrification. Right there, he sees something, and has a memory of suffering from the attack of his perpetrators, while a blonde boy punted him. At another time, that boy complains that Han Tae-soo is a bastard and asks why only him, to which Ji-hyung responds that he is an easy target. He adds that at this rate, he will also get hurt and asks him not to pretend to know him at school. This seems to annoy the boy, who then grabs him by the shirt and questions if he's crazy, but the young man just averts his gaze, which makes the boy let go. Ji-hyung reflects that yes, his childhood friend left, or at least he thought so, but he was gathering evidence. Since he has the ability to record everything he sees with his right eye, he sent this evidence to the police, the education office, and news agencies. But the next day, after all that, he was discovered and his right eye was taken out. The young man apologizes to Kang Ji-hyung, who is angry about what happened to him. Then the young man says he doesn't think he can keep going to school with him. Ji-hyung says that was Tae-soo's doing, and that he will make sure. But before finishing what he was going to say, his friend grabs him by the shoulder, trembling and begging him never to do that. Ji-hyung dries his tears and asks what he will do now, as he has lost his ability. Then the blonde boy asks him not to worry and with enthusiasm confirms there is much to live for and that he will join the army. In the next scene, the blonde's head is revealed on the bone spear Ji-hyung holds in his bones. He can only scream and cry for what he did. But again, there is no time to suffer, as more immediately, some monsters go on the attack, which makes Ji-hyung react and return to eliminate them. On the other hand, in the president's building, he asks what that is, and his secretary explains it's the monster that eliminated the Keum Kang guild and the Japanese prime minister. Also, that he was the one who caused the portal collapse, and according to their investigations, they need to eliminate him to return the gates to normal. The president asks why they are fighting each other, and his secretary replies that he doesn't know, but highlights that the important thing is that not even the other monster. He adds that the blood gate is spreading abroad and they cannot delay any longer. The president asks about the domestic hunters, but his assistant responds that all have been annihilated. This worries the man, and in the end, he asks them to contact the foreign hunter's office. It's then that we see someone asking if the monster that eliminated many in Korea and Japan caused the Bloodgate, slamming his spear into the ground and saying that this will be interesting. He is Lun Guang, China's #1. Elsewhere, a woman complains about something she sees. She is Russia's #1 ranked hunter, Vladimir Rusana. And lastly, a man in tears says he can hear the screams of those who suffer and states he must go. The other being, who seems to be his assistant, comments that if he goes, something will. Then he says the war is over, using an ability and destroying everything there. He is Stephen Lucas, America's #1 hunter, and announces they are now gunning to Korea. 5 years fighting against the creature in the blood dimension. A place with an extreme environment where food and sleep have been suppressed. Only repeated fights for survival. And extreme exhaustion. Ji-hyung reveals that each time he lost his mind, his transformation into a monster progressed. However, in those moments, he always remembered his mother's, who was in a vegetative state, and the despicable being who turned her into that. By the way, that last one made him wake up with rage, managing to suppress the monster transformation, but he wonders why he is now about to lose control. He reflects that maybe his determination weakened after achieving revenge, but then changes his mind considering that the magical power of the blood dimension has increased and that if he approaches, he can't suppress it. Because of this, he ended up killing innocent people. And while avoiding the portals, he can continue eliminating all the creatures. But even so, he wonders if with that, he can atone for his sins. Right at that moment, he is attacked. His head explodes from an attack. He looks at who did it as his opponent prepares another attack. On the other hand, when the portal appeared, it was Christmas. A priest was saying that with the arrival of Christmas, one should show gratitude. But unfortunately, a massive appearance of portals emerged. At the beginning, there were no hunters, and people could only flee. The pastor shouted for everyone to leave quickly. His assistant told him to evacuate as well, but the man replied, first. Right at that moment, a monster noticed him, heading towards him, but something happened. A light illuminated everything, at the same time eliminating the monster. The pastor asks if this is God's will. Leaving from there, and a new being awakened. It is explained that the largest church in the United States gathers 100,000 followers, 138, and there were no deaths. This was the appearance of the SSS level hero, first in the world who saved all of the United States. Since he was young, Ji-hyung respected him deeply. The #1 hero in the United States, Stephen Lucas. He wonders why he came to Korea. But Lucas doesn't give him time to think, as he is soon attacked and severely injured. The man confesses that the creature doesn't die easily. At that moment, Ji-hyung started regenerating. Then the man uses an ability, restricting Ji-hyung's mobility, who starts to approach a red portal, but he manages to throw himself forward, landing outside the red portal. Lucas prepared another attack. Just then, Ji-hyung says he's not a creature. The man halts his attack and asks if he is human. Then the young man asks as a favor for him to listen to his story. After explaining everything, Lucas understands the situation, embracing Ji-hyung while asking if it has been very difficult. He asks what his name is, and the young man replies that his name is Kang. Then Lucas says he fights to save human beings, but today he killed too many people. So as not to forget them and to atone for his sins, he starts to tearing his clothes and reveals that he has tattooed all of them on his body. He tells Kang Ji-hyung that he can help him eliminate all the creatures, but he also explains that this whole situation with the red portals will spread worldwide and many people will perish. Then he apologizes while writing Kang Ji-hyung's name, who observed all of this. Finally, he strikes the boy on the head while using his ability. He confesses that he really has to eliminate it. On the other hand, in the Hunters Association, Yumin was watching all this while healing Ji-hyung's mother. And apparently, that was encouraging the woman. In another place, someone complains about Lucas, calling him crazy since he went to Korea alone after devastating the war. She wonders if he was holding back power all this time. Then she is informed that her army lost 80% of its energy and that they can't hold the defense line. He adds that if they continue like this, the hunters will return to Earth and they need help. But just then, communication is cut. Luzana complains about this and adds that things would be different if she could capture the Arctic creature. Then someone arrives, announcing that the creature will be captured by him. Han arrives, announcing. We're done with this week's chapter. If you made it this far, comment chickpea salad. Also, don't forget to subscribe and like us so YouTube keeps recommending us. Thanks to everyone who watched this far. See you in the next video. But first, I leave you the next chapter and a comic that I'm sure you'll like.